Okay, we're going live and we are ready to kind of start a few ideas here about skin. Hello everybody, thanks for coming. I'm going to share my computer screen and we'll get started with some information. So I think that makes perfect sense over here. Okay. Skin problems and the WAVwatch. And I've gotten a few testimonies about that, but I'm hoping that some of you might have a few more ideas that you can share if you have any things that you've worked on for skin. So just a little bit of, information out of the way. We obviously have WAVwatch frequency fanatics. And you can go to Facebook Live and see that on Facebook. And then you can also access it or send people there later to see the the recorded version of that. So once again, thanks for coming on today. I want to kind of go over this slide. I've mentioned it before, but it's really making so much more sense to me about frequencies. Obviously, that's what the WAVwatch is all about, is all of these frequencies. We've got over 850 frequency sets. And Dr. Bruce Lipton is a great source of information. And basically, he's saying that when we take a prescription or a supplement or seriously even food, that these are turned into chemical reactions or frequencies, and that when it's comes into our body that way, that it's much slower to access our body, and that only 2% of it is absorbed because 98% dissipates in heat. So information transmitted by frequencies, such as the WAVwatch, goes 100% through it. Heat does not bother it. And so chemical signals travel at 1 foot a second, and frequencies travel at the speed of sound, which is 186,000 miles a second. But when you put sound going through water and different types of systems, it can go faster. So in water, many sources are saying it can go through our bodies at 4.3 times the speed of sound, where again, chemicals are just going through our body at 1 foot a second. So I think that is just totally amazing. But it makes sense to me because we have so many changes with using the WAVwatch, excuse me, in just a short period of time. So anyway, that might be something to put in the back of your mind. And then, frequencies are gaining speed. If that, excuse my pun, but they're gaining interest. People are definitely starting to be interested in sound frequencies for changing your body, changing your balance. And, just a few more ideas in case you need these, if it doesn't make sense to you yet. Just a few fun things to be able to say if you're sharing the idea with somebody. But there's literally hundreds of sound frequencies. So we've got 850, and they are encapsulated into a set. So some of those sets have 30 frequencies each. So really, I should try to do a little bit more math and say, thousands of frequencies, and see if I could get a number. But at this point in time, it's 850 sets, sound frequency sets. It's not connected to the internet. That's huge, huge, huge. People are not buying some other tools because they are concerned about wearing things around that are connected to the internet. And if you've been around anybody with a Fitbit, or I'm sorry, an Apple Watch, maybe I shouldn't be saying names, but those products are connected to the internet, and there may be some consequences of that. There's no cords or messy wires or patches. There's no monthly fee. It's cost effective. It's a one-time fee. And it takes care of a lot of different ideas that you can use. I shouldn't say it takes care of. It may be able to work with over 850 different ideas. And even somebody that's hard of hearing can use the WAVwatch. Sound is not a detriment in that particular situation at all. Let me see. I got to check. Somebody just texted me about something. Okay. Sorry about that. Nothing that details us, but I just kind of wanted to make sure. Okay, and the next idea that I wanted to share with you is basically jumping in on our workshop finally. But we have several different ideas for working with skin. And when I started trying to put this idea together for you to show you, I'm not a dermatologist, and I can't imagine what they go through with people and skin problems. Some of the pictures are very hard to see. Just like last week, I showed you images of veterans that had parasites and the consequences and what it looked like from a parasitic infection. And so I'm going to be showing some more today. Because that's what people are struggling with. So often I see somebody that I'm seeing a lot of these different skin problems with. And obviously I'm not an expert, I can't identify them, but I could share with them that the WAVwatch has a lot of different ideas that might cover and be helpful for their skin. So skin is huge. Basically, it does, to me, it means that something is really wrong inside our body. But there's two different ways to think of it. We could just have a rash from something that we've been environmentally exposed to. But it could be because our liver isn't functioning. It could be because we have parasites deep in our body. It could be because we have a bacterial infection. So skin kind of runs the gamut of problems and several different ideas to work with. I think I was blown away most because I love hot tubs, and I've had one before for years and never had problems with it. I never put chlorine in it myself or any of the chemicals. I use silver. I had my own silver product that I put into a hot tub, and I used it for about probably 10 years without any problems. But my neighbors use the chemical concoctions, and they were very, very careful, but they ended up with skin infections all the time. So when I looked this up, bacterial infections, there are three main ones, and I never knew some of these infections, what the exact name of it was. So very, very interesting, because we go places, we jump in the hot tub. I think I want to share an idea with you, and I may have already shared it before about the hot tub, but I have a system called the Biomeridian that I have mentioned several times that I test on. And I had a lady do a screening with me one day, and she was a pastor's wife. And I'm trying to be very careful, because what kept coming up on the screen was different STDs. And I didn't know what to say, and I wasn't saying anything. And I, all of a sudden I got this, okay, God, tell me what to do, And so I did a quick prayer, and it's like, what do I say to her? And God just really talked to me through consciousness, obviously, and said, ask her where she's been. So I asked her, and she said she had been on a cruise lately, and she was so excited about it and very bubbly, telling me about the cruise. And then God, kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, ask her what she did, on the cruise. And so that was my next question. And she said, oh, I spent all of my time in the hot tub. We just love the hot tub. We haven't had one. So along with the bacteria that hot tubs can be passing, we also have the possibility of STDs. And that really isn't our subject today, but I just wanted to share with you a little bit about hot tubs. So if you are, if you have a hot tub, check as many ideas out as you can and keep it as clean as you can. And I can, I'd love to share with some ideas with you about using silver if you haven't changed to that idea yet. But so it's not surprising that 3 major bacteria can come through on a hot tub. And one of them is Pseudomonas. And people get pus-filled bumps and an itchy red rash that can develop fairly quickly. And they even survive in chlorinated water. So, whoa. You could also get a chlorine rash from just the hot tub itself. And that's kind of a contact dermatitis type idea. And, red patches, itchy skin, swollen, scaly patches, blisters even that crack and bleed. So people have different problems with things that could be in the hot tub. And I just mentioned an extreme case, but they can also have frequent coughing or sneezing because this is a respiratory infection for them also. And again, this is all just from the hot tub and bacteria that we're picking up from that. And there's another one on the left side on the blue area, and it's called hot tub lung, HTL, hot tub lung. And it looks like, it looks like I have a space ran together there in my presentation. But this again causes the coughing, trouble breathing, fever, and fatigue. And so people love their hot tubs just like I do, but maybe there's a problem once in a while. So we do need to be very careful with that. But now we have the WAVwatch. So those could be some things that you could run just as a disinfectant almost. And that's what I have done. I have been in hot tubs a couple of times at somebody else's place or, at a spa. And immediately when I got out, I put the hot tub folder on, which the skin folder, which I call the hot tub folder now. And so very easy to have something there. I may not travel with enough products. I would also think that some silver, even on your skin after a hot tub excursion, would be very good. And I don't know how many of you know about the Elms Hotel in the Excelsior Springs area. They have 5 springs that are supposedly the healthiest springs in the world, the most different combinations of natural springs. And so that's a great place to be. And everybody goes. So obviously there's some things that can be passed around. So just another idea. I think I got one more idea on hot tubs here. No. Okay. I guess that was kind of my spiel on hot tubs. So please be careful and enjoy hot tubs, but make sure that you're covered, that you got your WAVwatch afterwards, or you've taken something to put on your skin so that you can have the least amount of problems. We never want any problems from that. Another type of dermatitis or another type of frequency set is just for dermatitis. And as I was looking at this and learning about this, there are many kinds of dermatitis, and they can, cover just a small area on your body or the whole body. So dermatitis is covered. And again, my suggestion would be that people might want to actually play several of the frequencies. They may think it's dermatitis, but one frequency might work just a little bit different that is not labeled dermatitis. And so you'll see some raw skin. You'll see red patches on light skin. There might even be some brown, purple, or gray patches on darker skin, dry skin. There can be rashes, blisters, itchiness, painful stinging and burning skin, and swelling. So, that kind of runs a lot of different ideas, and somebody's going to present with different problems, which may not even be diagnosed correctly by a professional. So again, that's why I'm trying to say they look so different. They may still be in the category of dermatitis. So place some other ideas on the skin irritation folder. So I guess I hadn't thought about diaper rash. There's many kinds of dermatitis, and diaper rash is one of them, So if you have a baby or a grandchild that has diaper rash, dermatitis is something you could possibly play on the WAVwatch. And other kinds of dermatitis kind of flow back and forth between the dystrondic, if I'm saying that right, dystrondic dermatitis, and that also is connected with the eczema and the psoriasis. And so they have some different labels, but they are all kind of similar. So again, play all of the ideas if you know someone who's having a huge problem with their skin. Now, of course, when we go to our medical community, they have a number of products. They have creams, they have antibiotics, they have antihistamines, steroids. The list is pretty endless. And so that's a good start, if that's the direction that you want to go. But some of these can cause problems in themselves and, turn around on the body and be a little bit harder on our body than someone might have anticipated when they reached out for medical care. So some of the natural things would be the easiest to try first. And of course, you can go online. This time I wasn't able to get into all the essential oils and everything that you could do for it. But maybe towards the end, we could put in a few more ideas if somebody's had some particular support with, other natural ideas. So huge problems with skin. And maybe because I have these frequencies on the WAVwatch, I'm just noticing more people with skin problems. I'm not for sure if that's the reason, or, if people are actually having more skin problems. But sometimes you're really horrified and you're trying to, I'm trying not to rush up to that person and say, would you like to try the WAVwatch? I have a natural product that might help with your skin, because it's really not any of my business, obviously. But you can see the pain and the problems that they must go through when just dressing and trying to decide what to wear and how to keep from itching, or if their skin is open to the sun that day, is that going to be more painful to them? So it has to be a huge problem all day long. And my thoughts go out to everyone that has a skin rash of any kind. So again, these are some figures that just kind of blew me away. Eczema, this is a lower back, and you can see kind of what that one looks like. And they say about 31 million people have eczema, and 8 million people in the US could have psoriasis. So the psoriasis is a little bit more of a raised red patch. And I did have a young gal that I worked with for just a little bit who it looked like she had psoriasis, the best I could, figure out. And she had large red raised patches like this on her arms. And so we were just around her just a little bit, but she did wear the WAVwatch, and her red patches changed to white. So they, maybe not the whole patch, but a large patch, say like in this area here, you could see that it had, in just a 30-minute time period had turned white. And I don't know how to say this. I'm going to tread water here and say it as correctly as I can, but she was very afraid. She wouldn't let us take a picture of the change. And she almost thought that, it scared her that she could wear a watch and that it would do something. And she was just literally scared. And she goes, oh, I need to take this off. And so I've never gotten that type of a reaction before. Most people would say, oh my goodness, it's changing. But her reaction was quite the opposite and scared her. And here, I don't want to have it anymore. You may not take a picture. But I was very excited to think that in a 30-minute time period that this skin color had changed so much. And she said she could see a little flake, it was changing texture too, just a little bit. So I don't know if anybody else has had any experiences like that with somebody being so negative, thinking, I mean, she was basically thinking the watch was evil, in my opinion. So very interesting. So we'll share a few ideas later on that. Now, here's another one that I just have to learn about. So many ideas. So Lichen Planus is clusters, or that you could even have lines for the rash. And I think you see in the bottom part of that picture that the rash kind of goes horizontally. And so this could be from the hepatitis C infection. It could be triggered by possibly, it just says a flu vaccine. Now, this is an old idea, and I got this from Mayo Clinic. So, of course, we're not talking about our latest jabs in the arms, but who knows what that might be connected with. There could be certain pigments, chemicals, and metals that could actually start this particular skin problem. And then a lot of pain relievers, over-the-top use of those can also trigger the lichen planus, and certain medications. So again, here we go on our medications. They don't bother to let us know, or, it's hidden away in the list of symptoms or side effects. And so high blood pressure medicine, arthritis medicine, and heart disease medicine can actually be connected with lichen planus irritations, skin infections. Very hard to take care of once they get started. But maybe somebody that has this could give us a testimony on the WAVwatch. Now, here's another one. It's in that family, and it's lichen sclerosis. And this one is really kind of tells you where the name comes from. So like we have these, moles outside growing on rocks and stuff. And that's where it really comes from, is that similarity. So it's very patchy, blotchy, white looking. And the sclerosis, the lichen sclerosis, can actually be, in very private areas. And so people don't report them a lot. They don't work with them. They don't know what to do. So there's a lot of itching, soreness, a burning feeling, bruising easily. It can actually even mess up the urethra, bleeding, blistering, open sores, painful sex. It's mostly in women, but men have it too. But it is not contagious. But again, when you start putting medications in those areas, sometimes the side effects can be horrific. So wouldn't it be great to start with something as easily as frequencies and see if there could be a change that happens? So a great start, if you know anybody. This is a little bit more personal, but sometimes women talk about this, or even if you know somebody has some skin irritations and the WAVwatch is available to them, they might look at that when you point out all of the ideas to use in the skin category. So very huge to know that some of these really irritating skin infections do have frequency sets behind them. And those frequencies were measured years ago, and they've been worked with many practitioners through the years. Again, not with the WAVwatch, but with larger Rife type frequency that costs thousands of dollars. So we have self-care on our wrists now. Now, this is a completely different idea on skin, and I think the images just blew me away with this, but I have seen this. I saw somebody walking down the street this summer that looked like this, and I really didn't know what it was. And they call it a blistering disease. And it was hard to pick out an image that was medium. Most of the images that I saw on the internet were over the top, and I didn't really want to show them to you. But this one, again, was the the least irritation to somebody's system that I could see on the images provided. But there are many types of this, but the idea, if you keep it in mind, is a blistering disease. So it's an inflammation. So again, if we think of our WAVwatches and you don't know what to do and you see somebody that's having any kind of a problem, the very first idea that I gave you is inflammation, pain, and trauma. And so even if you don't know what to do, that's an idea to get started with. So this messes up, it's an inflammation attack, and it causes, lesions that are scaly and crusted erosions and very red or strange colored is a way to say that. So that's one type of the pemphigus. And the WAVwatch does have several settings for that. So again, make sure people play through every single thing that's in that skin folder if they have some kind of a skin irritation. Sometimes these frequencies are just a little bit different, and that different frequency, even though it's not labeled what they may have been medically diagnosed with, they may get some results from a different frequency set. Now, we also have a whole folder in self-care, and this is for skin irritations. So we have acne, athlete's foot, lipomas, moles, vitiligo. I can't say that word very good sometimes, vitiligo, and warts. So again, a whole new different category and some things that maybe could be helpful. So warts, I think we may have somebody that has a testimony on warts that might, I might see if they'd give that later, but my son had warts, and he had several. He plays the guitar, and they were really bleeding when he played the guitar. And this was when he was a freshman in college. And I was so proud of him. He said, "Mom," he said, "I just prayed my warts away. I had to be able to play the guitar for worship. I couldn't have my hand bleeding in the middle of worship. So I just prayed my warts away." So never forget this. We need to be praying. And I just love sometimes the information that our own sons or children can share with us. So athlete's foot. Lots of pictures of this, obviously. We have frequencies for this. Then a person might also play the fungus and mold in the germ folder. There is a huge connection, obviously, there. We know that we get athlete's foot sometimes from being in showers and, our athlete bathrooms and things like this, where lots of people are moving in and out. So they do try to, have little tubs where you put your feet in to protect yourself. I remember those in swimming pools, but, they started putting chlorine in the swimming pools, and I think they don't have that as much. So a lot of people pick up athlete's foot from just being around other people in other areas. So that's a great one that could be used. But again, don't forget the fungus and the mold. Now, we also have lipomas. So those are another folder into themselves. I also have a separate folder for cysts, popliteal cysts, and a Tarloff cyst. So those cysts could be played separately, or the lipoma. So there's about 4 different ideas for a cyst or a bump of some kind, and lots of different information on those. They call them fatty tumors. Sometimes the medical community tries to, take them out. I know my dad had a lipoma of some kind, of fatty tumor, and he had it for 30 years on his back, and it was fairly big. But some of the images that you can see, if you look these up, some people might have 10 or 15 fatty cysts on one arm, or in one area very closely. So those did require some medical attention, but a single or a solitary cyst might be something that the WAVwatch would be really appropriate for. And I actually did have that in my office. It was quite a while ago, and so I couldn't remember this lady's name, but she wore the WAVwatch for about 30 minutes in my office, and she had a lipoma that was right here, and it's very hard to see it, but it actually melted away in that 30-minute time period. And she said she'd had it for 25 years. Now, here's the kicker. She just tried it for 30 minutes. And when I talked to her again, and I don't remember the time frame from when I talked to her again, she said it did come back. And I offered for her to come back to the office and try it again and see if, we could get it to stay longer, but we weren't able to coordinate on that. So anyway, I've kind of lost touch with her, but I do have one example of a lipoma or some type of a cyst going away very quickly. And again, it was only a 30-minute segment. So would it have stayed gone if she wore it for 2 or 3 hours? I do not know. But it can get very exciting when you can actually literally feel and see something changing on your body with just wearing the WAVwatch. Obviously, we have lots of moles, and it could be a melanoma. So, you need to kind of be looking at your body a little bit. There are frequencies for moles. I don't have any testimonies on it that I know of. Maybe somebody does today. But, if the mole gets to be very, irregular, poorly defined, if the color changes inside the mole, if it gets pretty large, if it's changing rapidly, you definitely want to have that checked out. But you also can work with a WAVwatch to see if there are any changes in moles just wearing the WAVwatch. I had my moles taken care of before I got the WAVwatch developed, and I do want to share that idea with you as we're talking about things, but it's very easy to try a lot of different things for moles. And the thing that I liked the best, that worked the best for me, was a larger amount of iodine. And I actually put it almost all over my body. And that sounds really strange, but I had a friend that worked for a medical doctor about 50 years ago, and the medical doctor was 75 years old. And when he had anybody in his office that had cancer, he basically had them coat their whole bodies with a Lugol's iodine. And when I heard this, I'm like, oh, that would kill somebody. Oh, how could that be? How is that possible? And of course, God answered my question. I'm going, tell me what to do. I don't understand this. And within a week, I had 2 women come into my office and say, oh, Linda, that's nothing. Don't you remember in the 50s that we made our own suntan lotion? And it was half Lugol's iodine and half baby oil was what they were using. And they said we would rub it all over our bodies all summer long. So that was my answer there. And again, it was sent to me. I just really appreciate all these messages that I get, and I've got to make sure I'm paying attention to them, because that's when I started. Just maybe every 3 months, I would, I did coat my body, and it only took about a third of a bottle of Lugol's. And that large mole that I had that was pencil eraser size on the back of my neck literally dried up and fell off in just a week or so when I did that. And then I had some other moles, on different areas of my body, or little skin tags, and they just peeled off. Basically, they just flaked off of my body. So I'm not saying that everybody should do that, especially if you have a thyroid problem. Iodine can be, a little bit tricky, but we do know that you could combine the Lugol's iodine with possibly at this point in time, a coconut oil, and you could put some on different parts of your body and just go very slow with it. But we all need iodine. Everybody has an iodine receptor. Every single cell has an iodine receptor. So there's millions of cells that need iodine every day. And obviously, we are not getting that iodine. And then the other little tidbit that I learned was that they used to put iodine in our swimming pools instead of chlorine. So they took out something that was normal that our body needed, and they put in something that was deadly for us. So there's one more example of things that have been done to us. And I don't want to go there too much, but, pretty soon I will be done with a couple more slides. And if anybody has a few ideas to share on what they've done for working with moles or skin problems or lipomas, the list is endless. Now I want to close out with one more skin problem. The vitiligo is very different. You can see lots of images of that. And there's several reasons that they think that people have this. This girl, if I'm saying her name right, Johnson Woods, just actually has embraced her problem, and she calls herself the goddess. And I just thought that was such a lovely picture. She's a model, and she's in the entertainment industry, and different is beautiful. And when people can fully accept that, we will thrive together. So what a message for any time. I just thought it was beautiful. So lots of problems with this also as our pigments change, but they're thinking that there are some reasons that we have this pigment changes. Could be genetics. It could be stress and emotional upsets. Gee, who doesn't have that, And it can be because of these chronic long-term stressors can cause all this inflammation. It could be an autoimmune disease. It could be even physical trauma to the skin. They're saying a sunburn. I think probably, in my opinion, the exposure to industrial chemicals would be one that to me would kick things off. So we have so many things in our environment, in our genetics, in our emotions, just in our body's functioning that can cause this. So the list goes on and on. So to coordinate with that and to kind of close out some of these ideas on working with different skin problems, make sure that you're playing the liver. Make sure that if you're working with a person or telling a person or you have this problem, that you're cleaning out your emotions. I mean, who would think that emotions might connect with skin problems? But they do, yeast, parasites, bacteria, all are going to be connected somehow. And maybe in some people, it's going to be a little bit of yeast, 1 or 2 parasites, and 1 or 2 bacteria, where the next person, it might only be parasites that are causing the problems. But to me, cover all of those bases. And then do not forget the detox folder. Play through every single detox idea. Now, who knows that this is just speculation on my part? I'm just kind of throwing this out. But I mean, who knows what conditions the EMFs are causing, or the 5G. I mean, we hear that the 5G burns our cells. It could be very hot. Can it cause some of these skin problems? I'm not saying that I picked up any of that or that it's been studied, but it makes sense to me. So by playing the detox folder, you are getting a variety of detox ideas that could be helpful. And again, my suggestion is not to ever pick through the detox folder unless you've play the whole thing first, and then maybe pick one idea that you'd like to play just a little bit longer if you know that's your particular problem. But make sure that you're covering the bases, because we are bombarded with every single idea in the detox folder all the time. So anyway, I think we are ready to say, hey, anybody want to jump in and give me some ideas on any testimonies or see where they're at. So Anybody want to share anything about skin problems or other testimonies or ask any questions in general? Thanks, Janet.
All right, so I have some questions and a comment. I've had one surgery in my life, late in life, an emergency appendectomy, and in the hospital, I picked up Pseudomonas aeruginosa. And I was put on a medication, I believe it was levofloxacin, that left me exceedingly weak, even my voice. So when I checked with the infectious disease specialist asking for an alternative, he said, well, you can return to the hospital or do this. I said, thank you, I'll stay home. But I later read, many, many years later, Pseudomonas aeruginosa is a very serious blood infection, and many people die from it. So I had no idea, somehow picked it up in the hospital.
Wow. And
So
see,
that's incredible.
I was just relating it to skin. They were saying how bad it was on our skin. And see, you've given us such valuable information that if we have that skin problem, that we better be taking care of our blood too. You know?
Yes, I had
Very.
no idea. It was years later. The doctor never told me about the seriousness. I knew I was left very weakened with it, hard to get off the sofa, and as I said, a weak voice. So yes, it's serious.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes they make such light of, a certain bacteria or whatever, when really it can affect your whole body. Thank you.
Yes,
Great
yes.
information.
And
Yeah.
I had
So,
a quick question unrelated to that. You mentioned that hotel, Elms Hotel. Where is
yes.
that?
And Excelsior Springs, Missouri.
Okay, Excelsior Springs, Missouri. And then
And
maybe
so,
later. Yes, go ahead.
so they have hot springs and they have, water that there's quite a history. The springs have been capped and people are trying to get the springs open back up, but they were natural springs that had the most healing waters in the world. Very unique history.
Yeah, thank you for that. And then maybe later here, after other people ask questions, I'm very curious about how you use silver in your hot tub.
Okay. And I can just share that now. It's been a few years since I've moved, but I had a large bottle of Smart Silver. The brand was Smart Silver, and it was 16 ounces. And I would just pour that into my 5-person hot tub, and it would last about 2 months is what I changed it,
Okay.
but way easier. And then there is information on the, internet on using silver in your hot tub. You can look that idea up. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Would anybody else like to add something?
Linda, this is Libby, if you can hear
Sure.
me.
Uh-huh.
I was just going to say that, I had a testimony about warts. I had one under my arm and it didn't really bother me, but I had had it for years. And I saw warts on the frequency and I just started to run it. And one day I had my arms up and my husband looked at it and he says, that wart is starting to turn black. You better go to the doctor. And I hadn't even noticed it. I'd just been playing it for a couple of days, off and on for, like maybe 20 minutes or so. And so then I thought, oh, when I looked at it, I could see it was peeling away from the skin. And so I just kept running the frequencies and lo and behold, it totally went away. Didn't know when it went away, but it's never come back. So
Yay. Well, when I saw you come on today, I thought, perfect. She can tell her wart testimony. Yeah.
Yeah, it was mine.
So, and it didn't take that long, right?
No, it just took a couple of days and I wasn't doing it, really consistently. I was just kind of playing it for a lark, so anyway, that's, that's what happened with it. Pretty interesting though.
Perfect. Any other testimonies or ideas or, any questions? Well, I will throw this out and I may be repeating it next week, but I did have somebody that just called about, it was like 10 minutes before the webinar was to start. And I said, oh, I just have a few minutes, and she goes, oh, I just wanted to give you a testimony. And she was saying that she had worn the WAVwatch for memory, for name recall, that she was getting very, very bad, and that she went someplace and she was surrounded by all these people, from 20 years ago. And if I'm telling her testimony right, when she got up the next morning, she was talking about that and, conversing with somebody else, and she remembered every single name, and she was literally ecstatic. So anyway, I play that once in a while. I'm not sure I can say that, but don't forget, we've got all kinds of frequencies, and you never know when one really does something for you. Just like Libby, she was playing the warts one for a lark. I'm playing the name recall one for a lark once in a while, and maybe I need to get busy and just try it a little bit longer, so anything else? I certainly don't want to take up people's time, but I really appreciate you coming on every day. So well, we may be winding down just a little bit. I appreciate your time, and we will catch up with you another week. Let people know, and maybe somebody will watch it on Facebook, WAVwatch Frequency Fanatics. And happy Thanksgiving. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good turkey day.
Thanks so much.
Happy Thanksgiving to you too.
You too. There we go. One last bye-bye.